What's going on, guys? Happy December and welcome back to WWE Network and Show, where I, Graham G.S. and Matthews, break down all the original content I watch on the WWE Network and on Peacock. And today we're talking the December 2nd, 2024 edition of Raw Talk. A great episode of Raw on Monday. I thought this edition of Raw Talk did an effective job of following up on said show, so let's get into it. Megan Murray and Sam Roberts in the studio, opening up the episode with the replay of the New Day segment with Kofi Kingston, Xavier Woods, Big E. A stellar segment, one of the best on Raw, not only all year, but literally in the last decade, if not longer. I'm not saying the best segment, but it's up there. This was fucking awesome. And it went in a completely different direction than what I was expecting. Now, ideally, I still would have liked to have seen the New Day go their separate ways completely, but they did shock and swerve us by having Kofi and Xavier Woods pretty much double team on Big E, not physically, but just shit on the guy and then kick him out of the group, forcing Big E to walk away, and Xavier and Kofi being bonded by their shared disdain and pretty much like annoyance, essentially, if that's the right word to use, with Big E being gone and now all of a sudden saying that he wants to come back and help them right as they're on the verge of splitting up and going their separate ways. They didn't like that very much. Now, did it make sense for Woods and Kofi to tease tension for months, and all it took was Big E coming back for them to say, hey, listen, we both have a fucking issue with this guy. Fuck him. We're going to stay together despite him. Does that make sense? Completely? No, it doesn't. But I still appreciate the direction they went in. If they just kept it at Big E coming back weekly to manage these guys, that would be cool and all, but like that should have happened fucking a year or two ago. And I realize like what Big E said in the segment itself. Oh, you know, I had doctor's appointments and I was busy, blah, blah, blah. You know, I just feel like it's too little too late for that, because what would be the end game? New Day getting the tag team titles back, and then what? And I guess you could say the same thing about this. Where do we go from here? They're heels again. Great. For the first time in a decade. We've seen them as heels before. But when they were heels about a decade ago, 8-9 years ago, they were, goofy heels. They really weren't taken seriously. So if this is like the New Day that a lot of us thought we would get 10 years ago with them as a heel group, albeit without Big E, then I'm all for it. If they can kind of keep this edge and not go back to doing the goofy shit, they got to change the group name, the fucking theme song, no more colorful gear. They got to go in a completely different direction. If they can do that, then I'm on board. So back in the studio, they also replay the Dakota Kai, Katana Chance, Shayna Baszler triple threat match, with Dakota Kai winning and advancing in the Women's Intercontinental Championship Tournament. They preview Lyra Valkyria versus Zelina Vega versus Ivy Nile in next week's IC title tournament matchup and another triple threat. We see Katana Chance with Kaden Carter backstage, and she's kind of still reeling from the loss, and Katana Chance says that she wanted to get back on track and get back to where they were when they were WWE Women's Tag Team Champions at this time a year ago, and she failed to do that when she got pinned in that triple threat on Monday night. Lyra comes up, and she's been buddy-buddy with them for a few months now, on and off. And she says, listen, Katana, you had a great chance, or you had I'm looking at her name in my notes here. Katana Chance, you had a great performance out there. I thought you looked great in defeat. You weren't the best today, but you could be the best tomorrow. And she walks off all annoyed, and then Kaden Carter was like, why the fuck would you say that? Like, what a dumb thing to say. She didn't want to hear that. Lyra's like, well, I was just trying to help. And I kind of get where, like, Katana Chance and Kaden Carter are coming from. Like, oh, you suck today, but maybe you won't suck tomorrow. And they are words of encouragement, but it's like, listen, it's probably better to not say anything. Leave her mourning the loss, kind of grieving in the loss, and then we can move on from this. Kaden Carter says, listen, we got to focus on our own matches for next week, or my match coming up and your match coming up next week in this tournament. And Lyra says, listen, you're right. I'll leave you doing your thing. I'll leave myself doing my thing. We said there would be no hard feelings in this tournament going in to become the Women's Intercontinental Champion. I guess that wasn't true, she says. But I will maybe see you in the finals. If we can both win our respective matches, maybe I'll see you in the finals. And no, the fuck she will not. I guarantee you, if I can bet on anything, it will not be Lyra Valkyria versus Kaden fucking Carter in the finals of this tournament. I appreciate the enthusiasm. That will not happen. They replayed Gunther beating Dominic on Raw, as well as Adam Pearce's subsequent announcement that it will be Gunther versus Finn Balor for the World Heavyweight Championship at Saturday night's main event coming up next weekend. They preview Gunther and Balor, which I'm looking forward to. The only singles match they've had on TV ever in WWE was right before SummerSlam. It was the go-home Raw before SummerSlam this year, before Gunther faced Priest. That was when Priest was still a part of Judgment Day. And they had a very good match, but it wasn't the match that I was hoping we would get, and I didn't think we would, in a fucking go-home show main event. between the two from like TakeOver Dublin. They were initially supposed to face off on that TakeOver Dublin show back in April of 2020 before it got canceled due to COVID. And I don't think we're going to get that match at this upcoming show. And it's not even like the heel versus heel dynamic, because when we were supposed to get it at that point 4 or 5 years ago, they were both still heels at that point as well. Balor was a heel. Gunther was a heel. So it's not even like the heel versus heel thing. The other difference is that we were supposed to get it in Dublin, and that crowd would have been fucking bananas for Balor, who basically would have been a babyface on that show. On this show, I can't really predict what the crowd reaction is going to be. They're in Long Island, a notoriously terrible crowd, and that's coming from someone who's from the Northeast. We'll see how they react to that match. It should be a good match. If they can go out there and have a great match, we'll see how it pans out. I could see Priest costing Balor the win, like Balor cost Priest the win at SummerSlam and Survivor Series. That would be a lame-ass finish, but I could see them going in that direction. They replay the Karrion Kross and Uncle Howdy promos before next week's 8-man tag team match that they hype up here for next week. It's going to be Uncle Howdy, Eric Rowan, Eric Rowan, Joe Gacy, and Dexter Lumis versus The Miz and the Final Testament. So the women are not involved in next week's matchup, for those curious. They replay R-Truth quickly beating Pete Dunne. Who gives a shit? We see R-Truth congratulating Alpha Academy on their win over New Day last week and vice versa. This was so fucking random, by the way. This had nothing to do with anything. I know Truth beat Dunne on Raw. Alpha Academy won last week. Alpha Academy just says, we're working on a new recruitment ad. So anyone can join Alpha Academy. Why anyone would want to join the group at this point when they're at their lowest point, I'm not sure. I know they won last week, but they never really win. They're a loser group. Why anyone would want to join, I'm not sure. But anyway, Tozawa then gets nasty and does his little dance, which was pretty funny, actually. When he does that shit, it's actually pretty funny. But other than that, I'm not really sure why this happened. It was a really stupid segment. It was entertaining, but it was stupid. We then hear from Natalya, who is being interviewed by Kathy Kelly backstage. And Natalya says that no woman has lived through more WWE history than her, whether she has beaten them or she has trained them. She's been there for all of it since 2008. She has been here for 16, almost 17 years, which is fucking crazy. And then it's gotten her thinking like the announcement of this Women's Intercontinental Championship, which would make sense if she won it, like her uncle Bret Hart, obviously one of the best Intercontinental Champions of all time. That would make sense. It's gotten her thinking about her own place in WWE history. And then the Unholy Union interrupt, who we have not seen on Raw in weeks. Since Raw went to 2 hours, we've probably have seen them on Raw once. And Alba Fire calls Natalya a footnote, which she is. And she also, like Isla Dawn also gets in there and says, listen, you may have beaten all those women, but those women did not face Alba Fire. Isla Dawn, Alba Fire, I get confused. They have not faced or beaten Alba Fire. And Alba Fire steps up and says, I plan to put you out in the first round next week, Natty. Or not next week, I don't think that match is next week, I think it's in 2 weeks. Either way, that's their way of hyping up that match for on Raw coming up in a few weeks. So I thought this was well done. They replay the Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez tag team win over Damage Control's Io Sky and Kairi Sane before previewing Morgan versus Io Sky for the Women's World Championship at Saturday night's main event. They also hype up Rhea Ripley versus Raquel Rodriguez for Raw next week. They replay the awesome opening segment with Punk, Rollins, Jay, Sammy, just phenomenal stuff here. We also hear from Miz backstage with Kathy Kelly, and he says that cooler heads need to prevail in this conflict between the Wyatt Six and the Final Testament. He tried to get out of the match by saying, listen, I could serve as mediator, it could be a 6-man tag team match, and he already texted Karrion about getting out of it, and then he gets the text back during this interview, and we don't see the text, but the implication is that he must compete, and then he shows support for the Final Testament, saying he will be there to be in the match next week. So I'm sure Karrion Kross threatened to break his knees again, or break his fucking legs or whatever if he didn't compete in that match next week. And then to close it out here, they replay the main event with Rollins beating Sammy, Drew McIntyre returning, attacking Sami Zayn, and then Sam Roberts' top 5 stars of the night, Dominic Mysterio, Dakota Kai, Drew McIntyre, and I guess he included Kofi and Xavier Woods as a one pick, or as 2 separate picks, even though we talked about them at the same time. They spent a lot of time talking about the New Day split on the segment, as they should. It was a pretty big fucking deal, and it was an amazing segment. But yeah, I thought that was really well done too. So that whole New Day thing, the opening segment was great. The close of Raw was really good. Just a great fucking show on Monday. And there's been a lot of very good Raws this year. This I would put up there as, if not the episode of the year, then one of the episodes of the year for Monday Night Raw. Thank you guys for checking out my review of the December 2nd, 2024 edition of Raw Talk. The excitement from the show kind of spilled over onto Raw Talk. Not an overly eventful show, but they hyped up the Women's Intercontinental Championship Tournament, which I thought was well done. The Truth and Alpha Academy shit was stupid, but overall I thought this was solid stuff on Raw Talk this week. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. Have an awesome one, folks. Enjoy the month of December. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews. And one last thing as well. You can now vote in the WWE AEW 2024 Year in Review Awards, the 12th annual, on WrestleRant.com. Head on over to WrestleRant.com, www.WrestleRant.com. Vote in the polls now. 10 different categories. We're revealing the results on the December 26th, the post-Christmas episode of WrestleRant Radio at the end of the month. And obviously the excerpts of which will be up here on the channel soon after. So go vote now, cast your vote, get your votes in, make your voice be heard and whatnot. And we'll reveal the results at the end of the month. So until next time, guys, I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.